everyone, today I want to show you how to make this two-toned cinched headband. It's really great because you don't need any waste yarn to cast on and off, so it makes it a really quick and easy project to do, and the way that it's grafted together leaves a really secure join that isn't going to unravel. So this is using red hot neon stripes and some black yarn from my stash, but to make the tutorial easier for you to see, I'm going to be using some Paintbox Aran from my stash. You can use any Aran yarn you want, any worsted weight yarn you want. You can use double knit yarn if you want, but I'm going to be using Paintbox Aran because I wanted to pick two colours that are easy for you to see. You're also going to need a pair of embroidery scissors, some tapestry needles and a 40 pin knitting machine. I like the 40 pin knitting machines for headbands because they don't come up too deep. You can definitely use a 46 or 48 if you want, but just be aware you'll end up with a much deeper headband. So without further ado, let's get going. As I've said in previous videos, when we're knitting a headband, we're aiming for a tube that's between 42 and 45 centimetres long. That's between 17 and 18 inches. That's going to vary depending on your tension. For my tension, that means I need to work about 86 rows in total to get the right tube length. I'm going to work this headband in two colours because it makes the graft easier for you to see when I'm sewing it together, but you can do it in one colour if you want. These headbands work great in variegated yarn. So with my first colour, I'm going to cast on and knit 43 rows in my first colour. I'm going to assume for the purpose of this video that you know how to cast on. If you don't know how to cast on, I have another video up here that shows you how to cast on in a lot more detail. So first things first, I'm going to leave a fairly decent tail and I'm going to work the basic cast on all the way around, and then I am going to knit 43 rows in this mustard colour. So I'm going to go away and do that now, and I'll meet you back on row 43 just to quickly show you how to change colour and to carry on until we get to the end. Okay, so I'm just working the last row now. This is row 43. And what I'm now going to do is to join my new colour. So I'm going to cut my yarn and drop the tail into the middle of the machine. And I'm going to join the new yarn, just pop it into the yarn guide here. Make sure that when you turn it that the old colour gets picked up by those last two stitches. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to knit 2 or 3 rows in the grey. And once you've knit 2 or 3 rows, just pull on these ends here and tie them into a single knot. We're going to finish the ends off better once we've finished the project, but for now just tie off those ends, and then we're going to carry on and knit to the 86th row in this grey colour, and I'll meet you back once we've got to 86 rows. Okay, so I've just finished my final stitch here and I want to cast off. So you need to leave a really nice long tail. You need to remove your yarn from your yarn guide and just turn the handle a little bit more until all of the pins have pulled down your working yarn, like that. Then you are going to need a tapestry needle. And what you want to do is you want to thread your tapestry needle and work all the way around, picking the stitches up off the machine and working them onto this working yarn. So as the needle drops down, you want to pick up your stitch like that. I have another video that shows you how to do this, so if you're struggling with knowing what to do, if you go ahead and watch that, that's aimed for people who haven't done it before and shows the process in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all these stitches from the machine, and I will meet you back once the tube's off, and I'm going to show you how we cinch the tube together. Okay, so all the stitches are off the machine now. You can see the tube comes freely away, and we can remove our machine because we don't need that anymore. First things first that we want to do is we want to go into the wrong way, the reverse side of the tube, and fix those ends. So all you do is you pull them tight and work a couple of extra knots. Because this headband is effectively doubled over, you don't see the ends, you don't need to worry about sewing them in the traditional way. You just do a few knots and cut the tails and leave a decent tail to stop the knot coming undone. Then what we want to do is turn our tube the right way round, and pull these ends slightly tight. You don't want to tighten them all the way. We are not cinching this headband by pulling these two ends tight and then just sewing the two tight ends together. This is a slightly different method that I think gives a much neater finish, and for me it's more secure because you're actually physically joining the two ends together. So that should give you a tube that's about the right length. Again, you're aiming for between 42 and 45 centimetres, which mine is spot on 42. Now the next part is the fun part. It's the grafting it together. If you don't know how I graft together a beanie, then this might throw you a little bit at the start, but once you get the hang of it, it's really a great way to cinch closed a headband. So when we cinch this headband closed, we are going to be weaving our grey yarn in and out of the stitches on this side and this side to join them both together. So what we're trying to create is one seamless piece of fabric. So what you initially want to do is you want to find where your rounds begin and match them up. Sometimes it's easier if you put them on one end so that you can see where you're working. So what we want to do is line them up, and you're imagining that you're working round in a sausage, I suppose is the best way of putting it. So you're wanting to make one continuous tube. So first of all, the first stitch will always be the one on the opposite side, and then what you are looking for, if you can see, is these loops that run on the cast on and cast off edges, and you are going to take it in turns, colour by colour, which is why I've worked with two really different coloured yarns so that you can see what I mean, weaving your yarn tail in and out of these loops. Try to make sure that you're not catching the yarn that goes through the stitches in your work, because when you pull to tighten, it can snap the yarn, and ideally you don't want to snap the yarn when you're cinching it tight. So we've got a grey one, and then we're going to pick up a yellow one. You can do them one at a time, but for me, I like to pick up two at a time because I know that then I've worked both sides. So again, grey one, and a yellow one, and quite early on you will see you're starting to zip the two together in the same way that if you've watched my beanie cinching tutorial, then you'll see that that's the same method that this is using, except in the beanies you're putting the two tubes inside each other, whereas with the headband you're wanting to create one long continuous tube. Once you get to the end here, it sometimes helps to start turning the tube inside itself so that you're always working with the stitches in front of you rather than trying to have to go upside down and get confused. This is the bit where it can feel a little bit awkward, but if you sandwich these two in between your fingers, then it means that you can see the side that you can see the stitches that you're working on fairly easily. Once you've done it a few times, it really does become second nature. And so this is the look that we're aiming for. You want to have your stitches zipped together alternately. Just pulling the last stitch through now, and now we're ready to tighten. What is worth remembering is that the grey yarn is going round the work twice, so the grey yarn can be the one that's sometimes slightly more awkward to make sure that it is perfectly tight, because what happens is if you don't pull it together slowly, you will find that the first round doesn't tighten nicely and it makes a mess. So straighten out your tube, and then what you want to do is slowly take it in turns to pull your yarn tight. Work your work a little bit because it can snag and make it difficult to tighten. So you can see that this is tightening up nicely now. It's up to you how much you tighten it, because the tighter you pull it, the more it will cinch in. So it really is up to you as to how tight you want to make it. So I'm just going to give a couple more tugs on mine. And I'm happy with that. That looks quite nice. So then what we want to do is trim off our ends. Tie a couple of nice tight knots so that you know that your work is secure. And then with this one, you can just trim the knot tight, but because the knot isn't hidden inside like with a beanie, I like to just work the tails in between the two layers of fabric, just a little way. Pull the yarn taut, cut, and then just give it a tug and it'll get hidden neatly inside. So there we have it, a nice neat cinched headband that needs no waste yarn at all. And like I said, you can make them with variegated yarn. This one is made with half variegated, half solid. You can make them all in variegated yarn, but they're really quick to do. And for those of you who don't like using waste yarn, they're a great method of making a quick headband without needing to use any waste yarn and casting on and off and struggling with the waste yarn method. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see you back for another tutorial really soon. Bye!